Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I guess we'll start out by asking for a roll call. And I can just look around the room and see we have a quorum. That's very good, but we'll do it officially.
Mr. Hall,
Here.
Mr. Bakley,
Here.
Mr. Dixon,
Here.
Mr. Artisan,
Here.
Mr. Carter,
Here.
Mr. Holsinger,
Here.
Mr. Posett,
Here.
Mr. Shiloh, Ms. Smith. We have a quorum.
Good, okay. Moving right ahead, can I have a motion, if there are no corrections or additions, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for the April 25th, 2024 meeting?
Second.
Do I have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Do we have any public comment? None. Okay, is there any other? Oh, that's the video guy. Okay. If there are no public comment, we'll move on to the development applications. I guess the only one, the first one we have, and Dave is kind of in charge right now, so we've.
The first and only one for review this morning is Parlor Donuts. They are going in former Haverstraw Law Offices on Burgoon Road. The building right at the top of the photo is the large Altoona First Bank on the Lone Boulevard up by Mansion Park. That's where we are. So this is there used to be a little real estate office in here. Haverstraw is at the left end of the building. That's where we're focusing, about the left quarter to the third of the building. They're not proposing too many changes. The parking lot, you see the stripes on the left, they'll be eliminated and reoriented to be parallel parking, and a drive-through will be added to that one there. So people come in off Burgoon, come straight into the drive-through and around the back of the building. There is an exit to the back onto Ruskin Drive there. So they are adding a drive-through. The two major issues, and the one seems to be more appropriate when the majority of the building comes in. The first being there should be some landscaping along here, probably bushes, because you can see two shadows here for telephone poles. There are wires overhead here, some low bushes. Like I said, it would make more sense to have those go in when the majority of the building comes in for review. And then circulation, as I mentioned, would come through this way. There's an exit right here. That would be the drive-through. These spaces would be reoriented to parallel parking, and there is no bicycle facility. So a bike rack right outside the door somewhere in this area would be appropriate. The bike rack, as we like to quickly call it, should be called bicycle parking. Could be something as simple as something like 4x4 driven into the ground with a couple U-bolts in it. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but there should be something put in there. Also, if there's going to be a drive-through, there's going to be a speaker, most likely. And while this next property over is commercial, by the time you're to here, you're into a residential neighborhood. So if the speaker volume could be kept to a minimum, that would be a good idea as well. That's pretty much.
Okay, are there any questions concerning item 4 of the agenda, the modifications for Parlor Donuts? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the staff recommendations and actions for item 4 of the agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
If there are no further questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Moving ahead, item 5 are those things which get sent to us by email that don't require a full review like item 4, as we did with item 4. These are usually minor subdivisions, lot adjustments, things of that nature. So if there are any questions concerning any of these items on item 5 of the agenda, now is the time for the board members to ask them. If there are no questions or actions, I will entertain a motion to approve the staff actions and recommendations
So moved.
Item 5 of the agenda.
Second.
Do I have a second? Second, Ben. If there are no further questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Okay, moving right ahead. Turn the page. This is items, review of actions that are by governing bodies. These are things that get sent to us by governments and require, the item 6 and 7 of the two we have here require a little further review than what we would normally do. So, Dave?
The first one is a zoning amendment proposed in Logan Township. Logan Township is one of the few municipalities that have anything on the books regarding solar. They're not the only one, but there's not many. Their current regulations are out of date. They have recognized that this is a fairly rapidly evolving technology, as it were. So they're updating to meet the current state of the art, so to speak, for solar. This amendment is entirely focused on their solar development throughout the township. They have 2 levels of regulation. One for commercial grade solar, which is what we reviewed a couple months ago, something along those lines, the larger ones. They generate on site but transmit off site. They're allowing those in the industrial and agricultural areas with some conditions. The conditions seem reasonable. Actually, what they were describing in the ordinance very much reminded me of what we reviewed back, I think it was in February. So that was encouraging to see. The other side of it is they are allowing solar on, say, on your house, but solar on a property for that property's consumption is going to be allowed by right throughout the township. So, and again, there's some conditions on that. You can't just go willy-nilly all over the place with them. They are encouraging that they be integrated with the buildings. So, flat solar panels on a roof, things like that, so you almost don't notice them. But overall, this is an update that seemed to be very appropriate and very up with the current state of both development and use of solar within this area. The recommendation was that it was consistent with not only the comprehensive plan, but just the state of planning in general.
Okay. Are there any questions concerning item 6 of the agenda?
Whatever happened to that major proposal for a solar development some time ago? We had a big presentation
They're
here.
still moving forward.
It's a proposal, that's good,
They're still moving
that's
forward.
good.
Okay, are there any other questions? Do I have a motion to accept the staff actions and recommendations concerning item 6 of the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, take your pick. Pick whoever you want there.
Don't pick me.
Okay, if there are no further any questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Moving ahead, item 7 of the agenda. Altoon's comprehensive plan.
So we've been working with Altoona it's been about a year and a half now. More intensely over the last year. They hired CCB to help them with their comprehensive plan. That's the same firm that did the county's plan. So this plan came out in a manner that we expected that it would. It's very implementable. It's very focused. They have basically 2 major categories that they've identified. The plan is very user-friendly. You can pick it up. Even somebody, say, in an upper elementary school level could probably pick this plan up and understand what's going on. It's very well done. And that's not to put it down, that's actually to elevate it. I'm not putting down language or anything. It's a very easy to use plan. There's 2 major categories that kind of align with the 2 departments that get more heavily involved with the public in terms of the city hall side of things, not the emergency management side of things. So the 2 major categories tend to focus on public works and then on codes. Under those 2 categories, there's about half a dozen under each major, larger concern. And they came through and did Allegany's Ahead. We call them the big things. So those big things under each of those give an area of focus, and they're kind of interrelated, they're intertwined a little bit, to move the city forward, say through light. One of the things is to improve the sidewalks, to look at parks and outdoor, getting people back outside and integrated with each other, things like that. With those larger concerns then, in the third section of the plan, there's a number of implementation projects, and they're tailored specifically to each of these larger concerns under those two categories. So it flows straight through. It starts out with an overview of the city. Here's the city, this is what we are now, here's where we want to be, here are the bigger concerns categorized in a logical order, and here's how we're going to take care of them. Very well done. Help just guide decision making in the city, and not only by the city, but within the city, other people who come in and have to interact or do business in the city to help them make decisions over the next decade or so. And the review letter, we encourage them to continue to follow up with more planning efforts as is needed. They've already applied and received a grant, we'll get into that in a few minutes, for the major rewrite of their ordinances, specifically the zoning and subdivision land development ordinance. As soon as this is adopted, I believe it's the next day they're kicking that off while the consultants are in town. Also, there's some issues in there that may benefit from having a specific plan on that topic, such as housing, such as recreation, things like that. So we encourage them, as those come up, as the need arises for those, then maybe they should be looking into doing some of those plans as well. But overall, very well done job, definitely consistent with our comprehensive plan, and certainly it's leading edge in terms of planning practice.
Okay. Are there any questions concerning item 7 on the agenda?
Dave, is a $75,000 grant considered to be the total cost?
No.
No, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, it's not the total cost. Oh, that's good.
Okay. I guess we got more to go on that.
Yeah, there's a whole other section on that.
Okay.
Under the grants. Is there any other questions? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the staff actions and recommendations of item 7 of the agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay. If there are no further questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Okay, moving ahead. Item 8 is again similar to our earlier item where these are staff reviews where they just don't rise to the level of needing a full review by the board, by board members. Generally, they are things like are kind of routine, standard things for letters of support for permit applications, things of that nature. So these get sent to us by email. If there are any questions on any of these items under item 8, now is the time to ask the director. Okay. If there are no questions, I will entertain a motion to approve the staff actions and recommendations of item 8 of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Again, pick one. Okay, if there are no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Moving ahead, Dave, you're going to have to explain why these are out separate, but I don't know quite.
They're grants, so we want to look at them a little harder.
Okay.
And both of these have been talked about and would have some pretty significant impact on their respective communities should they be able to move forward. The first is the Altoona Training Center. This is a training center for emergency management people, fire and police especially. I think it was focused more on fire. It is a capital grant application. It's going to the state office of the fire commissioner to build a training center within Blair County, very near Altoona, I believe it's going to be, if not within Altoona. It's going to be central. It's, of course, Altoona is applying for it, going to be building and operating it. So it'll be focused on their needs, but I'm sure it'll be open to surrounding communities, surrounding responders as well for their training. The money is for land acquisition for the proposed training center. So that's what they're looking for at this point. They do have a couple ideas in mind in terms of what the thing will look like, but right now they need to get the land before they move forward with a final selection on the design. These things apparently come pre-canned because these are the types of buildings you fill with fire and smoke and then send people running into them because that's what we do. That's part of the training, but they need them to be a specific design, so if something goes wrong, they can either open them up or get in there pretty quickly to get the people back out. So those are canned, but this is for the specifically for the land acquisition. Again, a good idea. We don't have one in Blair County that I'm aware of, so we're going to surrounding counties to do our training here locally. And this would be a boon not only to Altoona, but to, like I said, most of our other emergency responders throughout the county, throughout the region, really.
Okay. So basically, what we're asking is for permission for the proper board members, director to sign the letter of support for the training center. We'll have a motion to accept the staff recommendations and actions for item 9 of the agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Or if there are no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carried. Moving ahead is similar with item 10.
Similar idea. Again, a letter of support for Brentwood. Brentwood is a small section of Blair Township right above the Gaysport neighborhood. So immediately we see the larger impact of this project. They're applying to DCD for a flood mitigation flood program grant. It'll be for the development of a flood mitigation system in Blair Township. It's right across the line from the Hollidaysburg borough line. So they're going to be putting this in. It will work in conjunction with and support what's already being looked at in Hollidaysburg. That has been mentioned in the letter. It will relieve some of the flood pressure down in Gaysport, as well as address some problems that when places were built 50, 60 years ago, we didn't understand flood and stormwater and the relationship like we do today. This is kind of like a retrofit that applies standards from today to development from yesterday to try to address the problems that have arisen in the last half century or so. So that is good news for everybody in the area. As that goes in, we should see some relief, and as Hollidaysburg does the work on its side of the line, we'll see additional relief as well.
Okay, so this again is request that the proper board members and director being approved to sign a letter of support and application for the Brentwood flood mitigation project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
If there are no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Anything that reduces flooding out there would probably be greatly appreciated. I know that. So, all right, moving right ahead. Now we're into where we're going to get the money to pay for some of this stuff.
Okay, so as Dave alluded to with number 7 in the city comp plan, their request was to submit a grant application to DCED MAP funding to update their city zoning and SAUDO ordinance. The original request of the grant was $275,000. That was a proposal from CZB, who is their contractor right now. Basically, it was to extend their contract to do these rewrites and updates. The DCED portion that we could ask for the city was $137,500, and what they received was $75,000 towards that cost. So that grant was awarded already. It was a very, very quick turnaround, which was helped the city kind of got along, and they've already, my understanding is they've already moved forward with extending that contract. So this was just the other piece of it. So that funding will help do that. Is there any questions on that grant?
They didn't get all they asked for.
Correct.
But what does that mean to the
They'll have to
scope of
pay.
the
They'll have to
project?
pick up the difference out of whatever funds they have that they designate to. But they've already awarded that extension
Okay,
to
so it's not
CZB.
going to come back for additional funding in
No.
subsequent years or anything?
Nope.
So the city has to come up with, essentially, if they only got 75 of the 275 they asked for, they've
Yeah.
got to come up with 200K.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other questions concerning the grant? So number 7 and 11 are
Tied together.
tied together.
Mhm.
Do I have a motion to, what am I exactly?
You- it's really not a motion,
This is
that's
just
the-
information.
yeah.
This is information, so
Yeah.
there's no motion required here.
Right.
Okay, moving on then.
Okay, so number 12, I worked with Rick Pope with the Water Authority for the Borough of Hollidaysburg. They requested $225,000 to the DEP 902 grant application. That was for a leaf collection system that provides curbside service to the borough residents. We did have a consult with the DEP program manager for the 902 grant, as well as the program advisor. So we did a conference call. It was a pre-app that we had to do that was quite lengthy, but it worked out well. It actually preempted then the grant application, so it kind of fell right in line. So that request was $225,000. Their maximum ask from DEP was $200,000, so they'll have to do the cost share there of $25,000 to come up with that if that is awarded.
This is for curbside pickup.
Yes.
How do they pay for it now?
So right now they have a packer system where they have a laborer that actually packs. Like, so if you don't put your waste out curbside, they'll actually collect that, put it in a packing bag, and then haul that away. But they have to have a CDL operator, including a laborer. This will eliminate both of those needs for additional staff. So it would just be one person that will actually perform the curbside collection with this leaf collection system. So they're already doing it in conjunction, but it's actually more staff is needed, more time is needed. This will actually curb all of that.
Is this a yearly thing, or this is for how long does this money last? Or
They will purchase the leaf collection system. It's a truck mounted system. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
Okay.
So they'll just need one operator to do that. That is not a CDL required position, so it's a lower labor cost as well.
Okay, I get it.
Does anybody have any other questions on that?
Okay, so Hollidaysburg needs to come up with another 25K though.
25,000, yeah.
Okay, moving ahead.
Okay, so number 13, I'm actually presenting this afternoon at the commissioners meeting. They requested a grant application for phase 2 of the Valley View Park updates to DCED Greenways, Trails, and Grant Program. The maximum ask is $250,000 with this. They do need to provide a 15% match. They could have been able to use the land assessed value, or park assessed value, I should say. However, that appraisal has to be done within a year's time of asking the funding. However, since we can't use that, they had already budgeted $65,000 in their 2024 budget, so that will be used as the 15% match that's designated for this. It's actually above what they need. So they are looking at additional ADA access and connection points. They're looking at paving the roadway, parking area, making those adjustments. There's a lot of potholes and things that need to be updated. I'm sure you.
Oh, yes.
And then there's stormwater that is going in. However, the stormwater piece won't be designated with this round of funding. But if they are granted this $250,000, they can actually apply then for associated costs in phase 3 in the spring with DCNR, which is a 50-50 cash match, but they can use this DCED funding as that 50 50 cash match, so they wouldn't actually have to come out of general fund or park fund, however they want to allocate it. But they can pair the funding of DCED and DCNR together to do the next phase of the project. So that's actually due tomorrow. So this was a short turnaround. We've met with Keller Engineers, has done the cost estimate and the mapping of the updates that are going to have to the park should this grant be awarded. Like I said, I'm presenting this afternoon for their letter of support, and then the resolution, and then I'll submit that probably this afternoon or tomorrow morning, but it is due tomorrow.
Who are you applying, who are you presenting this to, the county?
Yes, on behalf of the commissioners, but they have to approve the resolution that needs to be updated, and then their letter of commitment of funds for that $65,000 to secure the 15% match.
All right, so keep your fingers crossed.
Yes.
All right, and that's again just information at this point, so no action. Moving right ahead, I guess, Dave, the next one's hazard mitigation.
We had a meeting of the Hazard Mitigation Committee this past month. I believe it was on the 18th. The formal part of the public outreach is complete. Of course, as long as the plan's in development, we're always reaching out. But the formal phases of going out, meeting with municipalities, the public workshops, the survey, all that element is completed. At the meeting on the 18th, we went through the rather tedious process of ranking and prioritizing the hazards. Flooding did come out on top, but we will now take the top 5 and give them local profiles based on our local data, which is what's required by both FEMA and PEMA. And then the overall information for each hazard we'll be able to take straight out of the new 2023 statewide plan, which does things like define what the hazard really is, and how it can generally impact and things like that. So it saves a lot of work that way. All we basically have to do is come down to the local level and get our local stuff plugged into it. We are going to do a little bit of an extra outreach for healthcare and housing, just based on some of the discussions that came out, and we just want to make sure we got those elements covered a little, probably a little better than what we have now. So I'm hoping that will take place in June, and we can move forward with that. The writing part of it is now underway. The first 3 sections, which are basically the introduction, the community profile, things like that, the demographics, what we are, who we are, what we do, and how things generally are here. Those sections are underway. Section 4 is the big section. That's the section with all the hazards in it. 5 is capacity, and 6 is the actual action plan. So those we'll be getting into shortly, now that the outreach portion is underway or is past us, and the ranking has now been completed. So we are still looking at doing the capacity analysis. There's several prongs to this. The middle bullet there, I should put it on the top because it's the one that seems to be the most pressing to everybody, and that is how do we handle our emergency response system in the county going forward. We're doing an excellent job with what we have. The concern is what we have is not going to meet our needs in the future because of just the changing demographics of the area. So there is help out there that we're looking at to get that done. The other 2 areas of capacity have been identified, have been local government in terms of the amount of personnel that are involved in local government, and also the funding and revenue for providing local government services. And then also there was some concern expressed with some of the private sector NGO type elements of the community, and where they cross over into hazard mitigation. So there is some concern there. It was at least worth mentioning. I'm not sure we will be able to get into that as directly as we could the other 2. But the thrust, because it is a hazard mitigation plan, the thrust of the focus and discussions tended to be on the capacity at the emergency responder level. Excuse me. So we'll be looking at doing something like that. DCD, I believe it is, has the program to help with the capacity analysis. They do it at no charge, but there's also no income. And somebody here locally is going to have to coordinate that. So that's the part we need to figure out. It's no charge, but we got to figure out where we come up with the funds to coordinate it locally, and we'll get there eventually. The focus right now is on writing the plan so we can get it out and around everybody for review and adoption here on time. Any questions?
This capacity analysis primarily is aimed at the fact that when you talk to the fire chiefs and the police departments and that they're concerned about their aging staff, you will call it that, their aging memberships. And apparently they're saying in 5 to 10 years we could have a real problem not having enough people to respond. So that's one of the things, is to try and address that issue and try and figure out how we might get more vocal, get younger and more people involved.
They're also concerned about their aging apparatus too, because the cost of fire trucks and things like that are so expensive that it's hard for one company, volunteer fire company, to even the city to come up with that kind of funding and fundraise all those efforts. So.
And that was aimed at, and part of that I thought was what I had heard was from you and others was that was intended to maybe prioritize or identify a company as a ladder company, or
right.
somebody else as a rescue company, somebody else as a hose company.
I think that's
and not have them all have each individual piece of equipment, but have the equipment they needed for their designated
right,
function.
and that is information and input we've heard from several of the municipalities as well as the fire chiefs and volunteers. DCD provided a survey for Logan Township that had already done that. In fact, it was just done last year and approved in December. They had done years ago, they had decided to do their apparatus and buy, I believe it's 4 pieces of equipment for Logan Township. And now they're coming up where they're aging out, so they're having to prioritize. And it's not safety issues because they've maintained them very, very well. It's just they're at the age where it's, almost 30 years, 30 years almost, that they're looking at, okay, where are we at 2 years down the road? And it kind of rated which ones need to be replaced. So this capacity survey will also identify that for the area fire companies as well.
Is there any action required at this? This is just information again, just all information. Okay. I think one of the problems we're all facing, again, is the aging of our volunteers, both police, fire, volunteers, board members, and you've seen that it's hard to even get volunteers for boards anymore. And
And daylight service volunteers, they're not.
Daylight.
Yeah, they're daylight. They have to call multiple companies out to cover because they can't get daylight volunteers.
Not everybody's available. Not everybody works locally like they used to. People are traveling for work and they're not.
Right.
They're just not in. They're not where they can get to a fire. I mean,
It's
they
not
can
only
drive
that,
a truck.
it's the ones that are local, the employers won't release.
Yeah, they won't release them. Not all, but there are some employers that won't release the staff to do that.
There ought to be a penalty for that, for not releasing somewhere along. I mean, we rely on volunteers, but we've got to, somehow they've got to be allowed to do their job if they're going to want to do it. But they're willing to do it. Okay. Anything else on that?
I have a question. Have any of them been considering the possibility of consolidation of their companies?
Yes.
You know, rather than having 3 or 4 buildings and all the different apparatus. I understand, you know, or designating one as a fire, as a, you know, water truck and one as the
Right.
rescue truck. But actually consolidating the people, then they might even be able to work better in terms of who's available to be called out for
Yeah.
certain emergencies.
They are looking at that, but that will also be brought out in the capacity study and the analysis of what is out there, what assets are out there, what's the volunteers look like regionally, to see who can be combined or suggestions of who can be combined, because that's not, it's going to to be an interesting
Yeah.
work.
It's
It's
interesting.
programmed to
It's up
do.
them, but
Yeah.
to see.
It's interesting in the sense that, one, to designate a function for a company. But in a lot of these smaller communities, where maybe you have, and I know, for example, Tyrone has 2 fire companies right now. But in addition, they're not only the fire, but they're social centers for
Oh, yeah.
a lot of the people that
Yeah.
are involved. And so, you know, when you start messing with their
Sure.
social function, they get concerned, and rightly so. I mean, they've been around for, some of them been around for 100 years or better.
Yep.
And they've been, like you said, they're not only the fire company, the local fire company, but they're in some cases they're a local social center.
And the other part of it too that we received input back from from the municipalities is with the police services. We have several municipalities that are trying to hire officers and they can't. So a lot of those positions are open. So while they have the staff budgeted, they just can't get the staff to fill the positions. So and we have several police officers that work part-time for one and part-time for another. You know, they're
Yeah.
crossing jurisdictions, but it's, you know, you're trying to fill a spot there. But we have numerous municipalities that do not have staffing
Yeah.
placed yet. So that's also part of the capacity issue is we have 1 full-time state police on at night, is that right? For all of Blair County,
Yeah.
which is very concerning considering how many municipalities don't have police services.
Yeah, and how many do lie and say that we don't need a local police
Right.
force because we've got the state police.
But when you have something happen at one end of the county and something happen at the other end of the county in the middle of the night, obviously there's mutual aid that can be attended, but not everything can be.
Well, the last number I had seen, and this may be a number maybe a year old, that they were talking about, you know, the state police had an area here 2 years or so ago where they had a lot of people retire.
Mm-hmm.
And the last number I heard was that on the state police was that they were somewhere around 600 to 700 open positions that they needed to fill, and we're not able to fill them.
Right.
And so if you think about it, that's roughly, if you just average it over the state, that's roughly 10
Per county.
officers per county
Right.
that they're short. So that's a significant number.
Mhm.
I do know that the last thing I'd seen too was that they did remove the requirement that you had to have 60 hours of college to become a state police, to go to the state police academy. And I think part of that was, if you aimed at there, I think they were aiming at to try and pick up maybe some of these young fellows who had come out of the military as military police, where they had the training, but they didn't necessarily have the college hours. They had some training, so I hope that's what they were aiming for.
It'll be interesting.
It's going to be an interesting, 5 years, 10 years,
They even backed it
They were
down
saying
to
2 to
2 to
5.
5.
2 to 5.
Yeah.
So
It's actually
it may
worse.
be on us quicker than we want.
Yes, that's why we were looking at applying for this capacity study, probably at the beginning of next year.
All right.
Yeah, you can already see it in the rural areas. It's
Well, yeah, I
bad.
mean, I was surprised. I was
You don't have a
surprised the
fire in
last
the
couple
neighborhood.
No.
last week or so, 2 weeks or so. I've seen more patrol cars on 99 than I've seen for quite a while. But I hadn't seen there for the longest time. I didn't see any patrol cars anywhere.
Well, we kind of heard some information about trafficking and things going on as I-99, passes right through this area.
Yeah.
So we had heard that, 2 weeks ago at the last training we were at. So that's,
Human traffic.
yeah, the human trafficking is,
Oh, okay.
so that's might be why.
Okay.
But that's
Summer
also,
beginning-
I'm sorry?
Beginning of summer, they try to crack down and
Yeah.
get people slowing down.
So there's a lot of things that have
Yeah.
come out recently with the outreach.
Okay. If there are further questions, I'll move right ahead. Dave, I guess you're still up.
Alright. Next month is election of officers. We put it on for the commission's pleasure whether you want a nominating committee. We recommend 2 members, and their charge would be to find maybe 2 people for each slot to be presented next month. And it might prevent the last minute deer in the headlights look that we oftentimes get.
Might prevent the
And
old.
if there's no interest, we'll let it go and do it the way we've always done it.
Might avoid the old Blair County Railroad too.
Basically, I would expect there to be a meeting with, you can come in, we'll sit down, and then a number of phone calls to line some people up, and then we basically present a report next month, and that report would basically, these are the people that are here, and then we vote them through like we normally do.
Any board members have any thoughts on this, or what they want to do? Got any volunteers to serve on a nominating committee?
The way our bylaws work, committees are a function of the commission, not the chairman. So it takes a vote and a second to create the committee and give it its charge, and then the chairman fills the committee.
Why? I hear nothing.
I think we have our answer on that one.
Okay.
Next is Jim.
Ooh, I get to really wake you up here. It's an exciting talk. It's that end of the year coming up here, and we got to look at next year. Basically, is our emphasis today. But for the current year, it's coming in as expected. We are going to have a loss, but that's because we're invested in the future. Oh, you got the handouts?
Thank you.
And that loss is because we made that decision to hire people, and then so we can get the work done. So we had big expenses out to hire and train, and we had money in the balance sheet, which you can see. Let me just double check. Yep, $127,000 is in our reserve account to help us fund that to bring people in. But this year has been another unpredictable year for us. As we lose more people, we lost our planner. This puts us back at square one, which is not a good thing. So we have to stop what we're doing, search for applicants, interview them, train them, and we're facing the same problem with our compensation package. What do we do there in order to bring people in quicker? Sometimes it takes us 3-6 months to get someone who's lucky, and all that money sitting on the table needs to be, some of those services need to get done, and it's very difficult, as you can see today. So we're going to emphasize looking at our compensation package as we move forward. So the upcoming budget, for the income side, we do show an increase in local share. Local share currently is at 53 cents. We're going to move it up to 56 cents. And that'll give us another $7,000, which isn't a lot of change. We left it flat last year, which was probably a mistake. I think with today's economy, and as everybody goes and buys a quart of milk, you're paying every year more. So we need to keep up with that so we don't shock them. However, as I say that, if we took it up to 60 cents from proposed 56, this would add another 9,000 onto our income. And I think we need to start adjusting that each year. So the proposal in the budget that you see there is going up 3 cents to 56. But if we would like to think about moving forward to the 60 cents per capita, it would give us another $9,800. Development review fees are currently flat, but we're gonna look at those. I think the income from that was like 45,000 projected. As you see, that wouldn't pay for one planner, so we're behind there. So we'd like to see maybe look at that increase a little bit more each year too. Transportation, local share makes up about 27%, and development makes about 8% of our income. And then we have two large activities going on, which is the hazard mitigation plan, which Dave brought up. And next year should be our big year to get that funding in. Also, the stormwater management, that'll add $80,000 to our income. But in order to achieve that $80,000, we need to have a plan in place. That leads up to our problem. Transportation, by the way, makes up 51% of the income. So now we get into our expenses, which 82% of our expenses are our budget, and our budget is our salaries, wages, and benefits. So there isn't a whole lot to talk about except for that. The salary increase that we're looking for this year is 4%, which is the CPI.
CPIU.
So that's what we normally do. And health insurance is one we're starting to look at. If we stay at our current plan, the increase of premiums would be a 5% increase or $2,400. Okay. However, to be competitive, we need to offer a better package. We think we'd like to improve our whole compensation. We've been working on our salaries a little bit each year and trying to get them up, and I still think we need work there. But we also need to look at our health insurance to offer a better plan and has better coverage and lower deductions would increase our premium another 17% or $8,000. So $8,000 isn't a whole lot, but it would give us a more competitive edge on hiring people.
Yeah. I guess one of the things we've discovered, I don't know what I say. One of the things we discovered is we have a plan, but because the deductibles are so high, that nobody uses it. So what seems to be happening is that, okay, we're paying for insurance that people can't use because the deductibles are so high. And it's affected hiring. It's also affected retention, things of that nature. So it's something we have to address. Simply to say it doesn't make a whole lot of sense if we're paying for insurance. It ought to be something that our employees can use and get some benefit from. So we've tried, Amy, we've asked the county repeatedly if they will let us be part of their plan or their program.
Right, but we
And
can't,
you don't want us.
it's not
No.
that, we can't do it. We can't do it.
Why?
Yeah.
Because they're not employees of the county. If we open it up to add additional people that are not county employees, then we would have to let anybody be on it. That's what the insurance company is telling us, that we just cannot do that. It would be, we had talked about it, the possibility.
I got an
And
answer.
the commissioners were like, well, yeah, that'd be great, but we can't do it.
See, because one of the things that happens with the county is that this age ladder gives away.
In this age, I'm sorry.
The age ladder, where our plans cost us more for our elderly staff than you do for new hires or younger people, and that's just a fact of life, and we all age. So, what do you do about it? It's
Well,
there.
there is another alternative to aging, but
Well, yeah, that's not a good one either.
That's a different insurance.
Different,
Yeah,
very
different
different.
insurance.
But I think we're to the point where we've talked and we think we just need to do something to improve the health insurance so that it's usable for our employees.
So that's why we're addressing it, to try to improve our compensation package. And part of the problem, so you understand it, is there was a survey done by the Planning Association. Our current base salary for a planner is $50,000 beginning. In our Mid-Atlantic region, which is Pennsylvania, the low range is $83,000 to hire somebody. The mid-range is $95,000, and the high range is $104,000. So you can see we're way behind the 8 ball. We're competing, and everybody's looking for planners, and it's a tough competition. We're way behind $30,000 in salary, and our benefits are at a weak point. So if we start now, we should start looking at our benefits and try to get them up as much as we can, and also keep looking at our salary and increase it where we can, if the budget allows us.
Well, this is the same situation that we are caught in the
Yes.
county,
Yes.
in terms of not only there's no money available for stuff, but you have to compare to something apples to apples. You can't compare Blair County to the average of Pennsylvania because you've got Philadelphia and Pittsburgh that pay tons more than anything else, but the cost of living there is a lot more as well. So it's hard. You have to look deeper into
But you look at the counties like us, and they're all in the same boat. They can't compete with those people. So everybody in our county that's comparable are struggling to get people where because they're going into the city. In the Mid-Atlantic region, I think there's Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. So outside of those 3 big cities, there's a whole bunch of little cities that are hiring more planners than those particular cities, so they can't be taking everybody. But if you don't competitive, you can't do it. We got money on the table. We got $80,000 in next year's budget. In order to spend, we need to get a planner in order to do that. Now, how are we going to get a planner in to bring in that $80,000? So it's a catch-22. I understand what you're saying, but you can't keep saying the same old thing and the same old thing keeps happening. You get a planner in. We lost McKenzie. He did a lot better job, and so we're going to go through it again. So we have to stop what we're doing. We're stopping the planning cycle in order to battle that, find another person. And it works, but it slows down the whole process. I understand. So there's both ways to look at it. But eventually, we have to be able to get a planner in here.
Yeah, so
but we still have the perennial question of where's the money coming?
Well, we have the money coming in.
You guys have some,
Yeah, we do.
we don't.
So, right, I understand. Well, yes, you do, but it's a very difficult way to get it. But that's
Not
part of
possible.
reality in life too. I don't know about your section, but we have the 80,000. We have those programs in place, and now we don't have to plan to implement that and eventually exclude some of that. And it's not good for the county not to have a stormwater management plan or a hazard plan. You need people in place to implement those, and that's what we're trying to do.
It's not just.
the other thing that bugs me, and has bugged me for years on this, it reflects poorly on the planning commission. When we have staff leaving, or we end up being short-staffed, if you want to call it that. What happens is that programs and presentations that are things that we promised get delayed. And so again, when that happens, it looks like we're not being responsive to our constituents, our customer base. Prime example of this is, the prime example for me, and I know they're not complaining about it, but had been the Williamsburg Comprehensive Plan, which has been hanging fire, probably 3-4 years. We've tried to get that thing out, and the problem is that every time we get a planner that's ready to work on it, we lose them. And so we can't get there. We're short-staffed. And where that looks bad is when we promise the municipality to do something and then we don't deliver. We don't provide it because we can't get to it. we've got other things that have a higher priority. We can't get to what we promised to do for them. And I don't like that. It bugs me.
So as the plans in front of you, the two things that we're looking to add to it would be to increase our premium to $8,000. It's currently up 5%, but that's, you can't control that, it goes up like that every year. So we look to add $8,000 for that. And local share, if we think we want to take it up to 60 cents, that almost offsets, that would offset the additional cost. That's how it would handle
Yeah,
that.
it almost balances it.
Huh?
It almost balances
That
it.
almost balances out, so that's how we're trying to take care of that. And local share is still a low number, 60 cents compared to other counties. So that's the two things that's not in the budget in front of you that we'd like to consider. So the budget will be coming forward next meeting to address that. Any questions?
So what happens if we keep raising our local share? Eventually people drop out of our services, or?
Well, you know, that's a good question. And the answer, part of the answer is there's two things. In our bylaws, it basically says you pay to play. So you're not a member, you don't pay your local share, you get no services. And by that we mean no services, nothing.
They won't do that.
We went
There's too many saldos out
Well,
there
well,
that have to, any residential, any development, that it has to be approved
It
by the
has to go
county
through.
planning
That's
commission. The
that's
local
true.
local townships, municipalities won't back out.
So we're a
I,
pretty
doubt-
important group.
I disagree with you in the sense that I don't think some of the supervisors realize that. The other
They may not, but
There's
there's too
thing
many
is,
township engineers that won't let it happen because it's all part of the review process where they
Yeah.
generate income for their business.
Yeah.
So they will continue to keep the
they
local
have to, I know they have to
municipalities
do it.
pushing that.
The other thing is that it's because of the situation, because not only that, because of the MPO. If they're not a member of this, they're not a member of the MPO, and that means they don't get their highway money. That means no gas, no fuel allocation from the state. None of that. That goes away. The bridge work, all that goes away. So yeah, I agree that it doesn't make sense for them to quit. But
So we have
I've
some
stopped-
leverage, right?
we have leverage. But I've stopped trying to figure out, you know, what some local boards will do because they maybe don't understand it. We've tried to explain it to them. We said, tell them that. But again, it doesn't make sense for anybody to drop out. But that doesn't mean that not everybody does things rationally the whole time.
You know, I was fascinated with this Altoona Comprehensive Plan. You know, right here, out of the 15 largest cities, we're the lowest, second to the lowest property tax levy per capita. I mean, meaning that we're living here is pretty cheap, you know. Same thing with, you know, full-time city employees. Like Altoona's the lowest, you know, on the list. And for full-time city employees per employee payroll costs per capita, we're the lowest on the list. Like we've hit rock bottom. We can't cut anything else out anymore, or we're going to implode. You can see right now that the school districts, you know, are imploding. Like they can't even afford to do maintenance. I think it's time that we start, you know, raising the bar a little bit, start moving up the ladder and saying like, you know, this planning commission is important to our community and there's a cost to it and it's time to like start elevating ourselves back up. We're at the bottom of the barrel here. And I think that, you know, it hurts a little bit, but, you know, I think it's going to hurt more if we just continue to, you know, spiral downward into nothing. And we won't have anything. So I think it's time that we start upping the ante and saying, look at, you know, we can't afford, we're going to either have to close this operation, which nobody's going to want, or we're going to have to up the ante. We're going to have to get the money to pay for, you know, planners and people to staff this because we can't do anything else anymore. Our hands are tied. We can't function without a planner, we can't function. And I know people don't want to pay more money, but, you know, how low can we go? Where's the bottom drop out of all this?
And that was one of the recommendations of the consultant's plan too.
Yeah, this is just Altoona, but I looked up some numbers, and Blair County's in the same place. You know, as a whole, we're the cheapest place to live.
So at this point, do you want to put the increase in for the health benefits, and do you want to put the increase in for local share? Should we need a vote on that or anything, Dave?
Not yet, but yeah.
Next
There's a
week, next
consensus
meeting.
one way or the other, we'll do it.
Question is there kind of consensus that we should go ahead and put those in the budget to see where they fall, so you can look at it, so you see what the hard numbers look like.
Well, the hard number would be another $7,000 for the health, or $8,000 for the health insurance, and $7,000 increase on local share, and $8,000 for the
Yeah, the local share money. The offset,
$8,000 for the additional
now
insurance.
the 60 cents. What you're saying is when you raise the local share to that 60 cents, that basically will offset the increase.
What?
That will offset the increased cost of the,
Technically.
The insurance.
approximately,
Right.
roughly offset the cost of the health
But
insurance.
that still doesn't get us a new planner, does it?
No, well, we've got the money
Well,
in
the
there.
health insurance would help make our compensation package look better.
We're
All right.
Salary, we just have to
got
keep
that. We
working
have
on.
to
We
work
haven't
on that.
increased it.
We've got money budgeted this year for a planner. But again, the question will be, well, that level is when it comes to hiring, you're not competing on the local level. I mean, the salaries may be adequate and look great for a local level, but they're not going to let you.
Makes it harder to
It
compete.
makes it hard to bring somebody in from outside if your job search has to be on a state or national level.
I say do them both. Go to the 60 cents and increase the health insurance.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. That'll be, if Dave, you get your marching orders, go ahead and figure that into, see where that shakes out and what it looks like.
So Dave, you're gonna need a bodyguard to go to all these meetings now? You got a suit of armor.
I
How
think,
about an armored vest?
I think it comes down to one of these categories. I think if you talk to most people who are involved in some of the supervisors, they realize what's happening. But again, how many things did you do in government when you were involved that you had to do things you don't necessarily like to do? You get involved with things, there's things that you know they're right, you have to do them, but you don't have to like them. You don't have to like them. You
It's
just
a
have to
fact
do
of
them.
life, you
You
know.
just have to do them sometimes.
Yes.
That's where we're at.
Inflation is increasing, everything's going up, everybody has to understand that. You know, it'll all pan out someday, but for right now, it's like everybody's raising their prices on everything in order to keep up with everyone else's prices. It's inflation, it is what it is, but eventually these things level out, but we're behind the eight ball because we should be raising our prices every year, you know, like everybody else. So
I
I advocate for, you know, asking for, you know, more money, or else if we can't get the money, people that resist it, then we just have to figure out that we have to tell them that we can't operate anymore and, you know, close the planning commission, I guess, that's the ultimate, you know.
I'm sure when we get these budget numbers from the different plans, the hazard plan and that, when they dish that money out, they're knowing how much things cost. So actually the money should be covering our expenses the way they see the world running. That's what we have to just think about it that way.
Well, I mean, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm seeing things that aren't skewed, but you know, is it me, or have we increased our service with just helping people in the communities get grants?
Yes.
I mean, so we've added
Service.
value, we've added service, we've added help to municipalities, trying to help them get money to pay for their projects, that they need to give us some back so that we can keep doing that.
Yeah, we've had this discussion of again, when you apply for grants, either we get paid for applying for the grant and doing the grant work, the application stuff up front, or we get written in as the administrator. So we have to, that's a discussion we've had. We haven't really resolved how we do that yet.
No, but I know, Sherry, you sat down one meeting and went through the list of all the different community groups that you have written grants for.
Oh, yeah, it's
To
a
get
tremendous
money,
amount.
you know,
It's
from
great.
fire trucks to snow plows to,
That comes out of the local share, right?
That comes out
Yeah,
of local
it-
share.
yeah, but that's what I say, they need to
Yeah,
contribute to that local share to get help getting their grants written
Well,
among
that
other
was-
services, because they're getting a financial benefit out of it.
That's one of the other things you've opened up, you've opened up another issue that we've talked about, and that is how do we apportion the local share money? Do we do it on a straight per capita? We've talked about going with a flat fee that generates so many hours of service, and then that goes to your part of your local share, and then you pay for anything extra. Say, if you have a grant that takes 20 hours and we're only budgeting you for out of your local share for 10 hours, then you pay something. But again, that's something we haven't really. We still have to look at that to figure out how we're going to do that, because one of the things we've run into too is if you start to look at, say, larger municipalities are actually subsidizing some of the smaller townships, because some of the smaller townships pay very little, yet they get the same service as everybody else.
Yeah, it's usually the smaller ones that need
Smaller
most
ones
help, so.
that need help.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know that there's any local share that hasn't been exhausted that I've written a grant for, just because it's a lot of time and a lot of effort. It's not a simple process.
But again, what seems to happen is that, okay, that local share goes into a big pot and we just use it. But the thing is that in reality, the larger municipalities are subsidizing the smaller townships.
And we're right under 4.9 million for the grants since 2022.
So we're trying.
Well, that's why I don't have an argument with increasing the local share, because they're getting services,
Well, they
they
are.
need to help keep us alive, so they continue to get, because some of the municipalities are getting a financial benefit by those services.
Right.
They need to shell in some money to help keep getting them.
But once we do that, we better get our planner on board.
Yeah, we better
because
get
Yeah,
that
yeah, I'm
See,
not
that's-
disagreeing, I'm
continue on
I'm
that
not
legacy.
disagreeing with that, I'm just saying, we gotta be able to hire the people, and we gotta be able to keep the people.
And we got to be able to do. We have to deliver work. When we promise work, we have to deliver it in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
You can't take money for comprehensive plans and then delay it for 3-4 years because we don't have staff. That's been one of my sore points for quite a while. Is that okay? We just can't, because of lack of staffing, a shortage of staffing. We're not delivering things that we've promised in a timely fashion. Not
Now, my understanding though is with a lot of the grants that at least the county applies for, that there is an administrative component. A percentage of that money is supposed to go to administration. Does that go to the planning commission?
No, that
Or
would
does
go
that go
back
to the
to,
municipality?
yes. The 2% is back to the municipality
Yes,
because
so-
they end up doing if there's mid-year or quarterly reports, like all of that time that takes those efforts to do that, do the reimbursement requests, your audit functions, all of that, depending on how high the grant is, that would go back to the municipality. That wouldn't come back to the planning commission, because if that was the case, at 4.9 million, we'd be sitting on a pretty
Well,
sweet
see-
pot of
That's what
admin money.
I'm thinking, is there a way,
Well,
if you can't, if it's not set up that way at this point, is there a way that we can set it up?
But that would
But
also-
then that would pick up the work that we would have to, somebody would have to do the work, so now we've got to
Yeah,
hire somebody
I-
to do all the admin work
I think
on top of the grant.
that's the.
But the consolidation of that job to one person who's very good at it because that's all they do is usually more efficient than having 24 people doing it, that maybe do it once a year or something like
And
that, and have to
That's-
figure it out every time.
That is absolutely correct. It's just what is the planning commission's direction, and we also have to get the buy-in from the
Yeah, I think-
municipalities if they want me to do the grant coordination and the administration. I've been asked that several times, but we're not set up that way to do that.
I think that's one of the things we have to, well, we've, at least I've struggled with it, we've talked about in the past, is when we write a grant, are we getting a fee up front for the administration? Are we being paid as part of the grant application to do the administration work or not? And so that's a question we probably ought to resolve with the municipality or with the grant applicant up front. Okay, are we gonna do the administration for you, or are you gonna pay a fee to have us do the grant?
Aren't there some grants that don't have an administration?
I was just
fee?
gonna say,
Yeah,
a lot
that's
of grants, especially state, do not have admin, the 2% admin. Federal usually always does, and also with federal, they also allow you the indirect cost to offset those functions for the grant administration. So it really is subject to the grant application itself, if it even has the admin in there. And most of them do not.
The state lately has been going, we want our money on the street.
Yeah, they don't want it.
They don't wanna pay for ed.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also still give them guidance so they don't lose their funding either, because there is a lot of municipalities that have turned over or just don't have experience with grants, so they don't know how to do the quarterly reports. So what does the reimbursement look like? Or don't pay for things prior to your grant award because you'll won't get reimbursed at all for it. Most of the state grants are all reimbursement. Federal is usually money up front, and then you do your reports. So, and a lot of them don't realize that or just don't understand the administration part of it.
Okay. All right. I guess we ought to move on. Otherwise, I guess we've talked about 17.
No, that's a contract.
That's a
Our
contract. Well,
has
we
to
have
be
to
signed
do-
tomorrow.
Hmm?
And
Oh, the health.
yesterday, when I came back from lunch, we heard back from the insurance people, and we have all our choices laid out. They want to meet with us next week, even though the contract's due tomorrow. So, we can let what we have automatically renew pending that discussion, and I'll bring it back next month.
Okay.
It's the only thing I know what to do right now.
Yeah, that's one of the things, that's another thing that has bugged us in the fact that when it comes to renewing our insurance, our health insurance contracts, they don't give us any time to review or make any, it's like, well, here's your information. Are you gonna do it or not? We want your answer tomorrow. We don't want
1:30 yesterday, I got the
And that's, because basically we gotta have a review at a meeting to vote on any expenditure, so we gotta,
What kind of things need to be resolved in that health insurance renewal?
Well, it will automatically renew to our current plan.
And then we're locked in for the next.
No, it's apparently not, because she's not any worried that we just meet next week on it. So I'm gonna meet with her next week, and I guess they can tweak whatever they need to tweak. So if we decide we're going to go with the higher plan, because it's all UPMC, it's just a matter of, new cards and all like that. So, she did give comparisons to Highmark and Geisinger, I believe it was, and they're at least twice what we're paying. So it doesn't make sense to go with them. So it's just a question of which UPMC plan we're going.
And if we go with a higher plan, is that in our budget?
That's what we were just talking about.
that was what we just,
That's the 8,000.
that's what we just discussed.
Do we have
adding
to
to the
approve
budget.
that budget to go?
Well, at this point, we recommended putting it in the budget, and next month we approve the budget.
But we have the option, if we do the auto renewal, it'll renew July 1, and say we're looking at changing August 1st, we just have to give them a 30-day notice that we're going to be cutting off the contract and starting anew with somebody else. But the 30-day requirement is in there to give UPMC
Okay.
the notice. So it would just be prorated.
just so you're aware, if we just let it default to what the normal is, our premium will go to, I'm getting to the age where I'm starting to play trombone. We're currently paying $39.36 a month, that will go up to $41.60 if we just let it default.
Now, the only question I would have is that we approve the going up. Is that gonna make the plan more usable for our employees?
That's the plan, that's just letting the plan we have.
That's the 5% increase to
Yeah,
just
that's
let it
5%.
ride.
The 5% just stays where it's at.
Right.
And what we're saying, what we've been saying with that is that the deductibles are so high that their employees aren't using it.
Right.
So with the increased cost, are we getting a plan that is more usable for our employees?
That's what it looks like.
Okay, that's
And
all,
if we're gonna sit down and talk about it next week, we'll just,
because that's the
that's what'll
thing,
come up.
that seems to be one of the things that's driving our retention problems with employees, and that is that, okay, we have a health plan, but in its present form, it's not usable. Okay, okay, so the money's in the budget, we approved putting it in the budget, so if we get a favorable report and auctions from your meeting, next month it will be up in the budget for approval at that rate. Okay, and it will be more usable for our employees. That's the bottom line, it has to be more usable for our employees. Okay,
We'll get you something. Hopefully right after the meeting next week, we'll drop those numbers in and then we'll get it out to everybody so everyone can see what it
Okay.
is.
all right. Amy, I guess it's your turn.
I'm just gonna.
Well,
I'm just gonna-
one of the things that the three of us have been discussing is that over the last several years, we've had countywide, mostly in the city probably, the exodus of our kids. They don't stick around here. They go elsewhere, and nobody's coming in except for the people who are coming in from other areas that tend to be in need of our social services, and therefore quite a drain on our society here as a whole. And so what can we do to make this, now that people are working remotely, and we've accepted that, what can we do here in Ware County to attract people who are working perhaps for the federal government but can work at home? Or people that want to come and start a business somewhere and they like something about this area. So what are we going to do to make this area more attractive to them? And we have been talking at length about developing our recreational facilities. We have a lot of facilities. They're not connected. They need to be connected. We need to connect to our adjoining counties. Things that would attract people who are young, have families, have jobs, and are looking to go to a beautiful place that has those kinds of things. We have to stand out somehow from everybody else and do something different. And we've talked to city council. We've talked to various other organizations that are interested in these things. So I'm glad to see, and I knew that the city was working on their comprehensive plan. I know that some of the things we've talked about are some of the things that they have in there. So I see that as a good starting point. One of the big pushes is the September 11th bicycle trails and walking trails, because that will connect New York, DC, and southern Pennsylvania, where the 9/11 memorial is in Shanksville. So we're looking at what resources we have that we can put towards that, and how we can do this in such a way that it will encourage people to come here. I know of people that work for the federal government that only have to go to their office once a week, and they can work remotely within, I think it's a 200-mile radius. They could live here and drive to DC once a week, and would be happy to do so. So I think that that's a good place to look for prospective people. Another thing, of course, that goes hand in hand with that is housing. Look at the housing stock. What do we have available for people who are in the higher income brackets and would be happy to come here, live in a nice, comfortable house, and be able to go out on their bike after work or during lunch or whatever. So those are things that we've been discussing and working with anybody that has the capability of coordinating with us.
Okay.
Any questions?
That's a tough one too, housing.
I'm sorry.
Housing.
Sandy.
Tough thing to house.
The housing is the biggest, I know.
When's the last time we had a development go in the county? It's been a
Well,
long time ago.
There's something, they're building some places along Brush Mountain. They're not huge projects,
Like
but
Fox
they're
Hollow or something.
projects,
Yeah.
you know. And some of them, interestingly, they're not all single-family homes, but if you look at the Washington, D.C. area, what's building there and what people are buying and paying a ridiculous amount of money for are condominiums. You know, you've got 6 or 8 condos all attached together, but people will buy that and pay for that, and so that they can have the standard of living of working for the government, the federal government. They're close to
Yeah,
that.
then they
So,
don't have property to take care, they can go outside and enjoy the outside world.
right, exactly.
Yeah, that's a win-win, I think.
And that's what we're looking at, is to try to, but, you know, the builders have to know that they're gonna be able to sell these places. They're not gonna be able to sink millions into developing something that just sits for a few years. We don't want that, obviously.
Well, that was the one, I forget, that was Southern Alleghenies,
Yeah,
did the housing survey.
that was very good.
Right.
And that was,
They've told us they're standing ready to help any county that wants to.
they were basically, at that point, they were saying is that the current housing, the cost of current housing in Blair County in this area does not make it attractive for a developer to build new, because he can't make a profit at it. He can't make a very decent profit. Now, I had 2 examples. The one was one that the local one on the county, on our level, was we actually had a planner that was willing to come. He was a local boy from the area who was working in Pittsburgh and wanted to come back home. And basically, he was willing for the salary we were offering, but when it came, he couldn't find suitable housing. And so he didn't come. That was one. The other one was and this is old and it may be out of date, but when I was working and going into DC, I had a bunch of friends that working in the DC area. And some of them were living out as far as going up 11 and 15 into Gettysburg in that area.
Right, yeah.
Some of them one guy was even driving in from Winchester every day, or 4 days a week, simply because they couldn't find affordable housing in the DC area.
Right.
And so and we're running into an issue similar to that, in that we have a niche. There seems to be more housing available in under 100,000 or less, and over 250,000. But in that area where people want to buy, there's a dearth of housing for people that want to move into the area, that for professionals, young professionals that might want to move in, that are willing to pay that kind of money for a house. And so it's
one of the reasons we're losing our young people. Is they
Yeah,
don't
it's
have
one
a
of
place to move into.
That's right, and we do have an aging population, and these people are ending up selling their homes so that they can go live in some of the other, what do you call it, the different, not nursing homes, but
The Greystones.
the assisted
The
living
Greystones
and the
of the world,
Greystone
yeah.
apartments and things like that.
Senior living
We've seen
housing.
a lot of those grow up, which is, not where we wanna go, but that does then free up single-family housing. But those houses typically, because the folks are older, need to be upgraded, so you've gotta have somebody that's willing to buy it and put in more money to bring it up to speed to what they're looking for, and to have the time to be able to do that before they can move in. So, we're trying, just different ideas that will attract those kinds of folks and,
I think that
bring them to the area.
one of the things that is attractive to this area for people who want to work remotely is we have all this countryside around here. We have all these homes in the country, we have homes in the mountains. People who live in the cities, they probably would love to have to come here and be able to go up in the, sit in their cabin or their farmhouse and work on their computer and
Well,
shoot a
and
deer
that's
out the
what
back door.
That's what we're saying.
But we
That's
need
what we're saying.
broadband. You need broadband. You
We
need
have- we
broadband
have that.
everywhere to
And-
attract.
And we have been working on that, and we have money for that, and there are towers that went in, and now there's the line or the wireless stuff's going in. We can't do that overnight. We have organizations that we're working with. We've gotten grant funds, and we're developing all these things. And we're doing what we need to do in order
So
to.
what about a marketing campaign to, major metropolitan areas to say, you can drive to, Blair County and live? Like how are we reaching out to let people know that we're even here?
Well,
On
unfortunately-
paper, that sounds good,
Yeah.
until they physically come here. And then that's when they look around, and that's the try to advertise for people to come here.
Well, and the marketing is being done by an organization here in the county that we're trying to change their how they market things, because we think that the marketing hasn't changed in the last 30 or 40 years, and so we're missing out on opportunities. And until those things change, but it's hard to get folks to change and to think different ways without beating them up too much.
Yeah.
All right, I guess as much as I'd like to continue this, I think we do need to move ahead so we can keep this meeting to a reasonable length
You
of
got a
time.
few more minutes.
Okay. I guess we've kind of done at 18. We've also everybody kicking in. We've also probably done 19, which is the members' inputs. So does anybody have anything additional? Or?
I do, and it has a lot to do with what we were just talking about, what attracts people to this area, and what do we see. And one of my pet peeves every year is I look around and I see that every tree well and every tree in the whole Blair County area that's overgrown with weeds. And there's weeds in the side, and maybe in the Blair County Courthouse, right across the street. I watch it every last year, all the way into the fall. Weeds are growing out of all of the tree wells. I think that the Blair County Planning Commission should write a general letter to all the municipalities and ask them, please, to either remove the weeds from the streets, mulch the tree wells, hire professional arborists to come out and trim the trees properly, fertilize the trees, and take care of the stuff that we've inherited from our tax dollars. Like all of these, like for example, Logan Boulevard and 6th Avenue and all these streets have they've been paid for by our tax dollars. They came from a lot of it came from state grants and federal grants. It's everybody's property. So I believe that the municipalities who have these trees and landscapes should take care of them. And I would go as far as say that there should be a regulation that says if federal regulation or state regulation said if you don't maintain these streetscapes, you should be denied getting future grant money or any money from that. So I that's just my opinion, but I think that it's time that we start cleaning up our streets, and if we want to make this place look attractive to bring people in from other places, we need to eradicate the weeds and the ugliness of take care of our the street trees that have been given to us. So.
Put a little light on that.
I can tell you this, I've been with the municipality, over 41 years, And that's always been brought up. And guess what the municipality tells you? It's the property owner's responsibility to take care of the sidewalk.
See, that's wrong.
Oh, he's talking about the ones in the city, but to help you out, right in front of the Clay Club where I got my coffee, they were putting something in the tree wells. It looked like macadam from the inside. So when I looked at it, it's a poor substance. They're putting that around all the trees that allows water to get through, but it blocks the weeds, and it actually is very attractive.
What is it?
What is
I don't
it?
know what it is. I
like
didn't have
a
time
rare-
to ask because I don't want to be late.
Is it that rubberized?
Yeah, it's
stuff?
something like that.
Yeah.
It really looks nice,
Yeah.
and they're doing it right in front of the Clay Cup. If you want to drive by and get a cup, you can't park down there though. All the construction going
Yeah.
on. But I see. I was not happy to see that. It really looks nice.
Well, I'd be happy to write a letter, you know, and you guys can edit it and you know, review it and endorse it or whatever if you'd like, or one of you could write a letter. But I do think that's time to start, you know, working on this kind of stuff. That's all I have to say.
Altoona actually had a shade trees commission, remember, Nick?
Yes, to be honest.
And it actually worked.
It actually worked.
No, you were on holidays for a second,
Yeah.
not out.
I was on Altoona's planning, I was on the Altoona Shade Tree Commission for, I think, maybe 10 years. We were the ones that planted all the trees on 17th Street and in the Coleridge area. We did a lot of
It just magically
planted trees every
disappeared.
year.
It magically disappeared from the budget, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't understand. I thought that was a requirement.
It was actually in the budget as a separate item to be financed annually.
You know, some of that, it's very good and very appropriate, but I think some of the things that I've noticed too is that, you know, in some areas that the entrances to some of the communities don't get maintained, don't look. I know there's two in Tyrone that are actually horrendous, they're terrible. And they're not in the borough, they're in the township. And you can't do a damn thing about them. But they don't, they're just, they're overgrown. They've got salvage yards, they've got every sorts of, you name it on them, and you can't do a thing about it. They really look, if you come in from town from those directions, it really gives a pretty poor impression of what the town's gonna be. But you can't, it's, some of it's just not unaddressable, because it's not your municipality.
Yeah.
So, but, okay. Okay, enough of that. Moving on. Walt, it's your turn.
Yeah, I have a few questions about the budget stuff. So this is considered to be, quote, a proposed budget we're talking about. And I did notice on this back page, there's 24, 25 numbers for income, nothing for expenses. Am I correct, or am I reading this wrong? Yeah, right. Yeah, but there's nothing for 24, 25. Correct? In that line, which is possible. No.
Expenses
Here's
are
what
at
I'm
the
asking,
bottom.
24, 25, here's your income. Down here, I don't see anything that says 24, 25.
So, sorry. Yeah, that should say 24, 25.
That's just the wrong numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, then, to that one then. You talk about needing a planner, so is Emily gone already? Or she's just not here today?
She's not here today.
She's still here,
Yeah.
okay. Now, this health insurance, you're gonna go ahead and renew this, because it's due
Yeah,
tomorrow?
what happens is with your health insurance, it automatically renews if you do nothing. So right now, we're going to do nothing and then meet about the renewal next week, and then we'll go forward from there.
Okay, so it will be automatically renewed then?
Right.
But then you can still change it later on and add the
That's-
$6,000?
That's how we understand
That,
it.
okay, I got it.
We're gonna let them add.
So how many total employees does the planning commission have now? You're talking about 4% pay.
We've got,
Fine.
well, those of us that are here plus Emily, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, Emily's 5,
Five.
and Mackenzie's on part-time.
5 full-time employees. Okay, that's good, that's all I need, thank you.
And that's part of the problem, it's such a small
Right,
group, it's
right.
very
Yeah.
expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's the reason.
That was the
That's
primary
what
reason we
you're
went to
doing.
the county and
Right.
the city was, you know, hopefully for an economy
Right,
of scale.
But of
And yeah,
course-
I understand, she,
Did you see the?
Nicole explained it yesterday, and he probably just didn't get the email, that
Yeah,
I forwarded, it was right at the end of the day, I forwarded it.
Sent email.
Yeah, it's just, it's one of those things, one of the things you do with a larger group is you eliminate this what I call the age ladder.
Yeah.
Okay? No other questions?
Good, that's plenty.
So we'll get a nice article, right? We always do. Well, I know we always do. It's always fair, let's put it that way.
It is.
That's always fair. Okay. Upcoming events. There's our calendar. If there are no questions about that, our next meeting is the 27th of June. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're out of here. Thank you. I think.